once upon a time, bondholders could recoup maybe 40% of their investment if a company they lent to went belly up. But this year, they're fighting over scraps, could sometimes walk away with almost nothing. As interest rates fell in recent years, investors bargained away protections in return for higher returns. This obviously now has come back to haunt them. I asked Daniel Lacalle what this inability to pay lenders back tells us about the financial state of companies this year. Lacalle is the chief economist at the Tressis Hedge Fund.
I think it says a couple of things. Usually, what you see in an environment of crisis is that obviously the value of assets falls, no? And particularly in this crisis and in the years prior to the crisis, what we saw is that there was a huge rise and a huge increase in credit to companies that had very weak levels of solvency. So one of the things that happens once the crisis hits is, one, the value of the assets that basically were giving some level of credit to the borrower are actually the value is falling. And second, that the cash flow of the company that was receiving that credit is actually much worse than was initially estimated. This tends to happen fundamentally, for example, in very cyclical companies, energy, etc.
And of course, this is the unsecured debt that mainly we're talking about. Is there particular companies or banks or lenders who will be more affected by this than others?
Usually, what we're seeing right now is that there's a big increase in bankruptcies in the energy sector and in those sectors that are very attached to either the hospitality sector or that depended on the hospitality sector booming in order to continue to survive. So those three areas. Now, it's not just, for example, hotels and restaurants. It's also, for example, business services that took some debt, but whose revenues actually depended quite a bit on tourism and on the improvement of the hospitality and leisure sector.
And in your estimation, we spoke a little bit about the difference of companies going bankrupt this year with government-imposed lockdowns versus a natural cycle of creative destruction where the least efficient businesses will go out of business. In your estimation, should companies like this in the hospitality industry, in the energy industry, should they be bailed out or should they be given assistance this year?
I think that there would be at least some level of understanding that many of these companies are falling not because they took the wrong strategy or because they made mistakes in terms of their business, but because of the lockdowns and the impact of the subsequent COVID-19 restrictions. So what would help certainly would be an exoneration of taxes on the sectors that have been most hit by the pandemic, so that at least their working capital does not build and creates a bankruptcy situation that is not due to their fault.
Have we seen any countries give this kind of tax holiday or tax break?
Some of them have. You have seen, for example, in Germany, to a certain extent, the United States has also done something similar, probably not directly tax exoneration, but tax cut plus some cash payment. So Germany in particular, I think, is the one that would come to mind as one that is certainly doing this for businesses that are in financial difficulty because of the lockdowns and the restrictions, not because of a bad strategy.
Very good. Daniel, appreciate it as always. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure.